네, 오늘은 여러분 청년고민 토크, Young Adult Special Talk 이런 주제를 가지고 여러분들이 지난번에 내어주신 그 고민들을 한번 이렇게 토크를 통해서 나누는 시간을 가질 텐데, 제가 이렇게 쭉 살펴보니까 굉장히 좋은 질문들이 많아요. 그리고 신앙적인 질문도 있고 사회생활하는 질문도 있고 해서 제가 오늘 특별 게스트를 모셨습니다. 갑자기 모셔가지고 지난번 질문을 보고 제가 조금 더 내년에는 조금 일찍 이제 준비하면 좋은 시간이 될 텐데, 여러분 질문에 좀 이렇게 여러분에게 도움이 될 만한 분들을 이 외부 스피커를 찾기는 시간이 없고 우리 교회 안에도 좋은 스피커들이 있어서 제가 찾다가 오늘 특별히 두 분을 여러분에게 소개하고 오늘 토크 형식으로 여기서 진행을 하도록 하겠습니다. 우리 그 홍성민 집사님 또 유민정 집사님 두 분이 물론 이제 같이 살고 있는 그런 관계인데, 그 두 분이 이 두 분이 여기서 여기 여러분들은 1.5세라고 보통 1.5세라고 부르죠. 어쨌든 자세한 개인적인 소개는 본인들이 아마 나와서 하실 텐데, 우리 홍성민 집사님은 아마 여기 캐네디언 여기 아마 컴퍼니의 그 바이스 프레지던트 직위가 그렇답니다. 제가 그 정확하게는 모르겠는데 어쨌든 여기서 그래도 공부하시고 그래도 직장에서도 좋은 위치에서 지금 직장 생활하고 계시고, 또 부인 되시는 우리 유민정 집사님은 또 개인 소개는 본인이 하실 텐데 지금 이제 그 라이어슨 유니버시티에서 지금 우리나라로 치면 조교수라고 할까요? 아직 정교수는 안 됐지만 이제 정교수 곧 될 텐데 조교수님으로 대학생들을 가르치는 그런 지금 그 사회생활을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 여러분이 낸 질문들을 중심으로 오늘 그 스페셜 게스트라고 할까요? 아마 영어로 진행이 될 겁니다. 오늘 사회는 우리 원래 박민희 집사님이 원래 하기로 했는데 오늘 새벽에 갑자기 연락이 왔어요. 지금 임신 중이신 거 여러분 아시죠? 꼭 기도해 주세요. 몸이 어제 안 좋아서 갑자기 할 수 없겠다고 해서 급하게 급조해서 훌륭한 사회자를 모셨습니다. 고윈든이라고 훌륭한 사회자. 오늘 진행을 그렇게 할 텐데 우리 세 분 큰 박수로 맞이하도록 하겠습니다. 마이크가 세 개가
test. Okay. Test. Okay. Welcome, guys. Yeah. All right, what's up, guys? As Moksanim said, my name is Wyndon. I'll be your MC, your host for today. For those who don't know, we took some time last week to ask our 청년부 to just share some of their questions, some of the concerns that they've been having. So today we're going to be choosing a few of those questions, and we're going to have our guests answer them. Before I have them actually introduce themselves, I just want to say that I don't think we could have chosen any better people. They are people that I personally look up to a lot, and people who I feel have definitely succeeded in life, both spiritually and professionally. So I do think this time is going to be very good for myself, but also you guys. So yeah, if you guys want to just introduce yourselves real quick.
Sure, thank you, Wyndon. So my name is Steve, and I came to Canada when I was in grade 5, and I went through all my school here in Canada and went to U of T, met my lovely wife, and got a job here, and started working in a Korean company called Kotra, and then moved on to work at a company you guys might know, Samsung Electronics, and then now I'm currently working for a local company that we're currently leading the sales department as a vice president of direct to consumer, and that's who I am. All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Mina. I immigrated to Canada with my parents when I was 7 years old, so when I was in grade 2, and so all of my schooling was here in Canada as well. I grew up not in a big city like Toronto or Vancouver. I grew up in a city called Kamloops, which is about a 4-hour drive from Vancouver, and there's very little Asians there. So I grew up, I did all of my schooling in elementary and high school with almost no other Asians in my school. And then I came to U of T for my university, and that's when I started to get to know more Korean friends, and I met my husband there as well. I didn't work quite as many places as my husband did, but I went to probably a lot of schools. So I went to U of T, I got married in 2006. I had Joseph, who's in Ictus right now, in 2008. And in between, I got my CA designation, so I'm a chartered accountant in 2011, and then I went on to have my second child, Caleb, who is in Yekumdongsan. And then I also went back to do my PhD in accounting at the University of Waterloo in 2014. And I recently started working at Ryerson starting in 2019 as an assistant professor of accounting. And the school's name has just changed, just so you know. It's called Toronto Metropolitan University now, but I'll just refer to it as Ryerson when I'm talking.
Yes, quick applause. All right, so just for the sake of time and for the session that we have today, we chose 3 questions that we're going to have our guests here answer for us. So I'll start us off with reading the first question. In the midst of a busy school or work life, living a life of faith sometimes feels burdensome and tiring at times. How can I prioritize God in my life? If I can have Mina answer the question for us.
Sure. So I'm by no means an expert in this, and I'm still struggling. And I think this is a struggle that a lot of Christians have regardless of their age. And so again, I'm by no means an expert, but there are a few things that God has taught me throughout those struggles, which I just want to share with you today, and how I deal with those situations when I feel that way. I think the first thing that I need to reflect when I start to feel that burden or tiresome in my heart with regard to my faith life is that this is really a problem with my heart. This is a heart issue. And so when prayer or Bible reading or worship service feels burdensome, it's revealing that I have lost sight of their value in my life. And so, because when people value something, that something doesn't feel burdensome or tiring, right? Like, when you go golfing, you probably don't feel like it's a burden, right?
Not at all.
Right, so it's a problem with the heart. So it's really important to know that these feelings of burden is revealing something about your heart. And without dealing with the heart, no amount of self-will or self-determination is going to fix that problem. You really need to deal with the heart to lighten that burden in your soul. So once I realize that my heart is not valuing God as I should, then I can begin to deal with my heart. And the way I do that is I first preach to myself and remind myself of God's purpose for my life. So according to Westminster Catechism, which Pastor Park is teaching on Fridays, and through the Bible, we're taught that the purpose of man is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. So God never placed any heavy burdens on us. He actually said in Matthew 11:30, He says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." So God never commanded me to become a top scholar. He never commanded me to become successful or earn lots of money. However, He did command me to glorify Him in everyday life, whether I eat or drink, and also to rejoice in Him. So when I start to feel like I have many different demands calling at my time, I really know that I have to step back and distinguish what God has commanded me to do versus the unnecessary things the world is demanding from me. Once I realize and preach to myself God's purpose for my life, I put my trust that living out God's purpose rather than my own agenda is the only way to be truly joyful and content in Him, because that was what I was created for. So money, success, or fame cannot provide us with true and lasting satisfaction. Only God can. And in fact, how the world works is that money, success, or fame actually puts more pressure on people because once you have those things, you're going to strive not to lose them. So once I have this conviction that I was made to glorify God and enjoy Him forever, and trust that carrying out this purpose in my life is going to lead me to true joy and satisfaction, the longing to spend more time in God develops naturally, and the burden lifts naturally as well. But very importantly, I have to warn you and emphasize that because of our fleshly desires, this conviction needs to be renewed on a daily, hourly, or momentary basis. Now, a renewed focus on God practically is going to drive us to prioritize our Christian life. And one of the things that can become difficult is that we're going to have less time for study and work. And that can leave you anxious. In those times, it's important to remember God's promises. Remember that the Lord's arm is not too short. And hold on to the promise that He works for the good of those who love Him. So trust that God will always lead you to the place where you would glorify Him most and be most glad in Him when you put Him first. Now, does this mean we can slack off in our studies and studying? Absolutely not, because when we live to glorify God in the things that we do each day, including our work, we're going to work more diligently, but we're also going to work more joyfully. Now to leave you with just practical advice, I would encourage you to schedule time for prayer and the reading of the Bible early in your morning, before the chaos of the day comes at you. We have to remember that the devil is like a prowling lion, and he's going to want to try to distract you every way he can once your day starts. So I think the morning is the best time to focus on God and to come to Him in prayer and the reading of the Bible. So to summarize, I would say when life or a life of faith feels like a burden because your other schedule is so busy, you have to realize that this is a hard issue in that moment. So deal with your heart. Remind yourself of God's purpose for your life, and yield to Him, trusting that He cares for you, because He does.
Thank you, Gypsy. Thank you. I think she put it really well. Definitely consistency being a big part, and then definitely coming from the heart is definitely a huge thing. I'm sure you guys know the saying, if there's a will, there's a way. If you really do want to prioritize God and really feel like He has to be in the center of your life, I do feel like any one of us can definitely make that time and put in that effort to definitely make that happen. Thank you again, Gypsy. Next question, this is going to be for Steve here. What does it mean to have a successful career as a Christian?
Thank you, Wyndon. So, the definition of successful career. So I asked myself that question numerous times throughout my career. And also, now I'm beginning to understand how it differs between Christian definition versus a non-Christian definition. So today, I want to share my experiences while I was working and throughout my career, and where I am, and how that definition evolved over time. So through these experiences, before that, I actually started working before I got my career during my university in many different part-time roles. I was a cashier, and I was a security guard, I was a salesperson, and through these experiences during my university years, I realized how competitive the real world was. And before some of my friends, I actually kind of figured out what the success meant at that time. So success at that time had three components. So one was a financial stability, right? To be able to do anything that I want. And the second was a recognition. I wanted people to recognize me. And then also third, because I was always thinking of going into a company, going up the ladder of a corporate ladder. So after graduating from university, I joined a Korean company called Kotra. So here, I helped a lot of Korean companies start doing business with Canadian companies. And if you're in university, a lot of your university students might actually be interning at Kotra because we hired a lot of university students. So I went into Kotra, and when I saw all of these business leaders, both Canadian and Korean leaders, they seemed awesome. They were financially stable, and people were looking up to them, and naturally, I wanted to be just like them. So I started working hard. And my hard work actually did pay off, and my results were good. People were complimenting me, and for the 5 years at Kotra, I actually succeeded. And after 5 years, I started thinking, I think I deserve more, and I want more. This company is too small for me to actually have a successful career. And then during that time, another opportunity knocked at the door, right? And it was Samsung Electronics. And I quickly took that opportunity, and I joined. And after I joined, Samsung Electronics being such a global company, I met even more powerful people. And these people had wealth beyond imagination, right? And when I saw these people, I was like, wow, I really want to be like them. So again, I started working hard. Now even harder, right? And I worked over 12 hours a day, sometimes even more. And that excludes a couple of hours of back and forth commuting. So you can imagine that left me very little time with my family and for church. So after working so hard like this for a long time, and halfway through my career at Samsung, I actually got burnt out. And then at that point in time, I was like, you know what, it's not worth it. I don't want to become successful anymore. But the problem is that I didn't know how to work any other way. I only knew how to work 12 hours a day. There was an immense amount of pressure to do well at work, and otherwise, I felt like I was going to get fired. And I can't provide for my family, and I can't be the breadwinner, and I can't be the father that I wanted to be. So I kept working like this. And the victim was my family and my wife, right? So, but because I was working hard, all of this hard work, still paid off. So, in the worldly view, people would have said, oh, you're being successful. So I kept climbing the corporate ladder because I kept working hard, obviously. And then, financially, I continued to become stable. But one thing was, I always had this emptiness in my heart. So what if I grow old and at the end of my career, what's waiting for me? But again, I would think that, and then all of a sudden I'd go back to work and forget all about all of that, and then continue to work 12 hours plus a day. And then it's not until I met God not too long ago where my view completely changed. So until now, I thought I was in control of my life. I had to work hard, and I had to provide, and it was me who got me over here because I worked hard. And how foolish I was, right? And but now I realize it was God who provided, right? And if I look back, if it wasn't for God's grace, that I would not be here where I am, and He actually had plans for me to be where I am. And so my view of success in this world have changed completely. And now I stop focusing on myself and relying on myself. And in Matthew chapter 6, verse 26 to 27, Jesus said, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? We can't. So since my realization, I try to put God first, and I try to put my family before my work. And in the beginning, and I'm still struggling time to time because a lot of work, but the funny thing is, when I started doing that, which I thought I wouldn't have the time to do it, I had to choose one or the other. But when I started focusing on God more and started participating and working at church more, taking on more work, time just kept, giving me more time to actually do things. And surprisingly, I was blessed with even more things, with more time. And there were times where I thought I had nothing, I had no time to do anything else. God continued to provide extra time. And at work, no issues. Right? And I was actually it was more fulfilling. And so, again, it was very surprising experience. And the one thing that I can assure you is that successful career does not provide you with happiness. Okay? And I've seen many very wildly successful people. However, none of them believe that they have enough. Right? So no matter how high you aim and how far you go, and like Elon Musk, the richest person in the world, do you know who he looks up to? Vladimir Putin. He thinks that Vladimir Putin is more successful and more richer than he is. So there's always going to be somebody that people are going to be longing for, and you're never going to be able to fulfill your emptiness and your greed. So what's the moral of this story? And it's a long story, but what I truly want you guys to take away is not to waste your life. And I don't want you guys to make the same mistake as I did. It took me about 15 years of my career to find this out. And a lot of you are going into workforce, or you will be going into universities, planning out your career, right? And I just want you guys to understand that there's much greater things in God that you can be fulfilled for. These worldly things are not going to fulfill you. And again, there's many important things in life, and career being one of them. And as Mina mentioned, that you shouldn't take it lightly. You gotta do best. You gotta give everything you've got, but within limits, within the given time frame. And when you go to work, you will be pressured. And I'm sorry to tell you that it will be challenging, all right? And you will be asked to do a lot more than what you think is right in order to succeed, or even just to keep your job, all right? And then, but you have to be able to draw the line. And when you have conviction, and when you have the courage to say no and do the will of God, then God will provide, and I can guarantee you. And then, one thing that I want you guys to remember is that continue praying and ask for things, but these things of success and rich and all of these should not be for you, right? I want to say that continue to work hard, continue to succeed in your career, and continue to accumulate wealth, but not for yourself, but to glorify God and to also help your brothers and sisters in need. That's when you're truly find happiness. And then also, the career and work should not be your focus and your end goal. Remember, this is actually means to help you and support you to live a true Christian life. Only then you'll be able to find true happiness. It's not about how far you go, it's not about what you accomplish, but it's about how fulfilling life do you live, and every day could be a successful career. Okay? So I deviated a little bit from my script, but I thought it was important, so that's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jefsani. It's funny, when I first came to church at that time, even at that age, I really wanted to have a role model in church who I felt succeeded professionally in life. And I don't think before these two people came into church that I had someone like that. But then after they came in, knowing that they had succeeded not only in life, but having this kind of faith as well, it definitely gives me motivation and the energy to do more work in my life too. And Jefsani said it well. These rich, successful people, they're not happy because for them, enough is never enough. But for us, people with faith, God is enough. So thank you, Jefsani, for your answer. Last question here for Mina. How can I know which career/study major is the right one for me?
Right. So this is a really big question, and I think this is a question that everybody has asked and will continue to ask, even if you have a job. whether the job that I'm working in is the right one for me. And I'm not sure that I can give you a satisfactory answer, but again, basically, I'm just going to share with you the things that I've learned in my career path. And by career path, I am also including my studies because ultimately you're studying to prepare for your careers. So just practically speaking, you've probably heard this before, but the career decision can be guided by three main factors, I think. So there's talent. You have to have the talent that matches the job you're aspiring for. Passion, that you have a desire to do something about that job. And open doors, which are the opportunities that open up to us. So God normally gives us talents and passions that will incline our hearts to a certain type of work or a certain type of subject or study. Now, and these inclinations can be confirmed through the doors that open up to us. But more important than these three factors is the fact that all of these are going to be discovered, developed, and guided by the sovereign will of God when we abide in Him. At the end of the day, we can't know our future, but we do know the God who knows our future. And we also know that He promised us that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my career path. And the reason I'm doing this is when I look back, I actually had very little to do with where I ended up now, being an assistant professor of accounting at Ryerson. So I entered into a biology major at U of T with the aim to become a dentist initially. At that time, I felt that this was my calling. However, that conviction disappeared very quickly once I entered university and realized that I did not like working in a lab and that I was just not very good at the sciences. So, and for most of my university years, I had no idea what I was going to do after I graduate. I just kind of kept at the schoolwork, so I ended up graduating with a double major in biology and economics. Two things that have nothing to do with accounting or education. But by God's grace, in my last year of university, I took an accounting course as an elective, and I fell in love with it. It just clicked with me. Of course, by this time, I was just about to graduate, and I didn't want to redo 4 years of university, so I graduated with my biology and economics degree, and then I moved on to just fulfill my accounting course requirements at Ryerson. And I went to Ryerson because at that time, U of T didn't allow me to take courses unless I was registered full-time in the program. And Ryerson was offering continuing education, so I decided I was going to go to Ryerson to pursue those additional courses. So by 2011, I obtained my CA designation after fulfilling my course requirements, fulfilling my work requirements, and then passing the exams. And at that time, I was thrilled. I thought I was done with studies. I didn't want to take another test again. And I thought I had found my lifelong career, or so I had thought at that time. Now, fast forward to 2014, and I'm going back to school, which I didn't think I was ever going to do because I really did not want to take another test again. But I was entering into the PhD program in accounting at the University of Waterloo in 2014. And this was prompted by one of the professors that I had met at Ryerson. And God miraculously opened doors for me that I never imagined were possible. This acceptance into a PhD program was a miracle for me because usually you need excellent university grades and a master's degree to get into a PhD program. I had neither of these. So my later grades in accounting were good, but my earlier university grades were very poor, and that's not an understatement. And so my overall GPA was not at par with what was acceptable for a PhD program. And I also did not have a master's degree. But God opened these doors for me miraculously. So all of this is to say I took quite a detour to get to my current career in academia. And I'm not sure even whether this is my last career either. So I had misread God's calling for my career multiple times, but looking back, it was the providence of God that has been working in my life all along. Had I not taken that accounting course in my last year of university, I would have never developed an interest in accounting. Had I not gone to Ryerson, I wouldn't have met the professor who propelled me into a career in academia. And had I not had my CA designation, I would have never been accepted into a PhD program without a master's degree. So the thing I want to emphasize through my career story is that none of this was of my own planning. It was all of God's. And because it was all God's planning, I get none of the glory. He gets all of the glory for everything that was done in my life. So looking back, it really didn't matter so much whether I knew the will of God for my career. What was infinitely more important through those years, however, was that I learned to trust Him through the uncertainties and to learn to obey Him in the daily activities which add up to your life. I think too often we focus on the big life decisions and ask for guidance when we aren't obeying in the already revealed God's commands in our daily tasks. What I've learned throughout my career path is that God cares much more about the state of our heart in carrying out our seemingly mundane tasks than He is about what we can accomplish in our career. When God talks about His servants in the Bible, He rarely talks about their achievements. Rather, He commends their character. Of Joseph, He said he is a man after God's own heart. Noah, He called righteous. Job was called blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. Finally, Moses was known to be a humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. So these are the things that God looks at, and He is the one who guides our life. In His time, when we are ready, He is more than able to bring us to the career where we would glorify Him most. Recall Joseph in the Bible. Other than his dreams, there's nothing about his life path that would have pointed to the fact that he was going to become second to Pharaoh. Nothing. But God has been preparing him all along. And Joseph responded by being faithful in the things he was given to do in the daily moments and trusting in God. So Proverbs 16:9 says, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." So I just want to urge you to trust in God's providence over your life and strive to glorify God in the tasks He has given you to do each day. And when you do, He will give you the talent, the passion, and the open doors to lead you to the career that is not just right for you, but perfect for you. And it's going to be perfect in all of the good ways to bless you, but it's also going to be perfect in all of the hard and difficult ways to grow you and to incline your heart more and more towards God. So bottom line is trust in His sovereignty, do the daily tasks with the heart to glorify Him and to rejoice in Him, and He is going to lead you throughout your life.
All right, so that's going to wrap up the questions that we have prepared for you guys. Thank you to the audience and, of course, to the amazing guests that we have today. We're actually going to have a short Q&A time right now. If you guys have any additional questions you want to ask our two guests, feel free. Anyone have any questions? If you raise up your hand, I'll come over. Okay, I have a question for you guys. For some of us here who are not yet married yet, do you think it's mandatory to meet a spouse that already has faith, or does that not really matter?
Actually, I'll go first. That was actually one of the comments that I was going to leave behind now. Thank you. I think it helps. And truth be told, I wasn't, it took me 15 years to come back to God and truly be transformed. But it wasn't because of my, hard work, and there was a lot of prayer and effort that came in, that came and worked from my wife. During this 15 years, I have to tell you that she did have a lot of hard time and, probably challenged her faith as well because of my weak faith, right? So I don't think it's not impossible, but also at the same time, I think it will be very beneficial to continue to help each other when the other person becomes weaker, to continue to keep you on the path. Yeah.
I would say it's very important for me. We are called not to be yoked with unbelievers. And as far as we can control it, I mean, he was going to church when I married him. I didn't really know, inquire too much to know how deep his faith was. So it wasn't like he didn't go to church, he was against God. I think he believed that he existed. He just didn't dive deep enough to have a personal relationship with him. But I think it's very important, like, this is the person you're going to be making the rest of your life decisions with. It's going to be very challenging if you do marry an unbeliever. And it doesn't mean that they can't be converted. They can. But it's going to be through a lot of prayer and a lot of patience. So if possible, I would encourage to meet other believers if you want to get married.
Got it. Thank you. Any last words? Do you have? Oh, is there a question from the back there? Question. Study or time management tips for students?
Actually, I did want to leave a few practical advice. Generally, and you might have heard of this, but the rule of thumb is for every hour of classwork, you should be designating 3 hours of non-class time to your studies. That would include just reading ahead of time. And to make the most of your class time, you need to prepare before. You need to have read the chapters or the materials that they're going to cover, because a lot of students come to class time and they're just blindly just writing down notes. Nothing is going on in their brain, but that is a waste of your time during class time to be doing that. So if you prepare ahead of time, you can engage in the conversations in class, and the students who really do well are the ones who participate in class. And the other thing I wanted to encourage students to do, or students who are going to be in university, is when all professors are probably going to have office hours, right? Go see them during office hours. They love it when students come to them, even if it's, and don't come to them and say, I don't know anything. That's not good. But do your work ahead of time. If there is something you're not uncertain about, don't spend endless time trying to figure it out on your own. Just go to office hours and ask professors. That's a really good way to get to know them. Students that come to me asking for letters of recommendation, if they have never come to office hours and it's a class of like 70 students, it's hard for me to know and write a letter for them because I just don't know them personally. And in fact, that could open up a lot of doors, because just this past semester, Steve had opening positions for accounting in his workshop, and so there's a couple students that I had in mind. So I reached out to those students to see if they were interested in the internship. And in fact, the professor that I came to know at Ryerson, who urged me for the PhD program, was a professor I'd gotten to know because I had visited her office. I was actually pregnant at the time, and I had visited her office with a full belly saying, can I write the midterm before, because I'm about to give birth in 2 weeks. And she had said, I also went to school when I was pregnant, and this was all by the providence of God again. And so she had hired me to do graduate assistant and marking for her, and that's how I got kind of into academia. So again, office hours are great opportunities to get to know your professors at university, and they again, for students who are really, trying, and if they're struggling in any of the areas, they're more than happy to help you, and it's a great way to get to know them.
Yeah. Applause again. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Feel free. All right. So, any last message that you have for our youth here at 청년부 that you want to share?
If I can leave you just one thing, you're always going to be confused, and there will be challenges throughout your life. When in doubt, always consult with people at church, like Pastor Park. You can even reach out to me and Mina at any given point in time, and we're open to share. I can't promise that we'll have the answers for everything, but we can pray for you, and we can share our knowledge. Thank you.
You want anything to share? Okay. Yeah, just one more round of applause, please, for our guests. Thank you so much. Thank you.
예, 너무 수고해 주셨는데 우리 큰 박수. 예, 감사합니다. 예, 이제 앉아 보니까 보기가 좋아요. 저도 한번 앉아볼게요. 좋은데? 예. 저기 우리 두 분, 제가 여러분 주일날 질문을 받고 고민을 하다가 수요일날, 지난 수요일 불과 한 3일 전에 제가 질문을 드렸는데 오늘 너무 아주 잘 그 대답을 준비해 주셔서 감사해요. 아마 밤잠을 설쳤을 것 같아요. 근데 영어하고 한국말 하는 게 확실히 다르네요. 보니까 우리 유민정 집사님 조용한 줄 알았는데 막 패션이 막 느껴지네, 영어를 하시니까. 예, 어쨌든 두 분 그 여러 가지 또 나중에 식사 가지 마시고 우리 청년들하고 식사할 때 같이 하면서 또 여러분들 질문할 거 있으면 하고, 예, 뭐 좋은 시간이 됐으리 생각하고, 우리 저 윈던 선생님은 오늘 아침에 이야기했어요. 미니 집사님이 새벽에 연락이 와서 갑자기 부탁했는데 거의 뭐 기다렸다는 듯이 이렇게 사회를 이렇게 잘 보내요. 참 인재들이 많아서 너무 감사합니다. 다시 한번 우리 하나님께 영광의 박수 올려드립니다. 예, 그래서 이제 제 시간은 이제 없지요, 그죠? 여러분들 질문을 굉장히 많이 내주셨는데 제가 질문만 소개하고 오늘은 마치도록 하겠습니다. 그 신앙적인 질문하고 질문이 굉장히 좋아요. 제가 보니까 그래서 지금은 이제 오늘 이걸로 마치도록 하고, 제가 여러분이 내준 질문만 한번 쭉 한번 읽어줄게요. 그래서 예배 시간에 같이 다루면 참 좋겠다. 제가 다음 주에 돈 문제에 대해서, 지난주에는 술 문제에 대해서 나눴고 다음 주에는 돈 문제에 대해서 이야기하려고 했는데, 여기 오늘 대답할 시간이 없으니까 한번 읽어줄게요. 여러분이 낸 질문이에요. 예정론, 프리데스티네이션에 관한 건데 굉장히 이제 이건 또 아주 광범위한 주제입니다. 예정론이 궁금합니다. 성경에 의하면 어떤 사람은 이미 하나님으로부터 택함을 받고 어떤 사람은 택함을 받지 못한다고 적혀 있는데, 좋으신 하나님을 이해하려 할 때 이 부분에 대해 어려움이 있습니다. 우리에게 자유의지는 있지만 하나님의 택하심이 아니면 예수님을 영접할 수 없다는 부분에 혼란스러워서 요즘 어려움을 겪고 있습니다. 이미 누가 천국 가고 지옥 갈지 결정이 되어 있다면 우리에게 주어진 자유의지는 어떻게 해석해야 하는지, 그리고 전도의 의미는 무엇인지, 이거 아주 사실은 굉장히 큰 주제예요. 요거 제가 다음 주에 하면 좋을 것 같아요. 요거를 다음 주에 제가 설교 시간에 다루면 좋을 것 같습니다. 두 번째도 비슷해요. 뭐 전도가 어렵다, 가족들, 친구들 교회 나오라고 하려고 하니까 너무 또 부담을 주는 것 같고 해서 뭐 어떻게 하면 될지 고민이다, 이거고, 그 다음에 이제 이단에 관한 거예요. 그래서 내가 그렇구나, 이단에 관한 것도 제가 한번 한 주 잡아서 제가 여러분과 함께 나누겠습니다. 굉장히 중요한 주제이기 때문에 이단에 관한 질문을 던져주셨고, 그 다음에 또 이거는 제가 전혀 생각하지도 못했던 질문인데, 해피 이스트, 부활절이 우리가 해피 이스트라고 하는데 이거 이교도에서 온 거 아닌가, 이게 뭐 아시리안 가데스 이스타 뭐 이렇게 적어놨네. 어디서 봤는지 모르겠는데 거기서 유래된 거라고 들었는데, 이런 표현을 그리스도인이 그러면 해피 이스터 이거 써도 되냐, 이 질문인데, 이것도 그 이야기 하려면은 이게 이스터에 관한 질문만 아니고요, 크리스마스라든지 우리가 쓰는 여러 용어들에 관한 질문이에요, 이 질문이. 그래서 이것도, 그래서 이건 따로 주제를 잡기는 그렇지만 어쨌든 한번 제가 여러분에게 말씀드리겠습니다. 그 다음에 Holy War, 거룩한 전쟁, 사람 죽이는 게 정당화될 수 있냐, 요것도 제가 한번 토픽으로 한번 다루겠습니다. 이건. 그 다음에 또 저는 깜짝 놀랐어요. 이 질문들 보면서 우리 청년들이 이렇게 이런 질문들을 던지네. 난 맨날 노는 줄 알았더니 깜짝 놀랐어요. 제가 질문이 가벼운 질문이면 제가 차작 다루려고 그랬는데 다 가벼운 질문이 아니야. 그다음 6번째 질문은 기독교는 왜 이렇게 교단 종류가 많나요? 디노미네이션, 이 교단에 관한 거예요. 이게 그래서 어떤 게 옳고 어떤 게 틀린지 어떻게 분별할 수 있나요? 그걸 누가 결정했어요? 좋아요. 예, 요것도 제가 한번 다루겠습니다. 요것도 앞으로 설교가 쫙 있어. 난 너무 좋아. 한 주씩 여러분들이 다 정해줘가지고 이거 중요한 문제입니다. 이것도. 예, 그 다음에 이제 이거는 이제 일반적인 기독교인으로서 학교 친구들하고 기준이 달라서 너무 어울리기 어렵다. 대화 코드도 안 되고 뭐 이런 건 아까 좀 이렇게 말씀해 주셨는데 이런 부분도 있고, 그 다음에 이제 교회에서 열심히 섬기는데 학교도 다녀야 돼, 가정도 섬겨야 돼, 뭐 이리저리 바쁘다 보니까 또 교회는 좀 안 하고 싶은데 사람이 없어. 누가 채워줄 사람도 없고 눈치도 보이고 이걸 좀 어떻게 잘 극복할 수 있겠는가. 요건 이제 한 토픽으로 다루기보다는 한번 그냥 설교하면서 한번 제가 다루겠습니다. 그 다음에 이제 뭐 큐티 하는 거 이런 거는 뭐 나중에 다루면 될 것 같고, 그 다음에 뭐 가정 예배는 지난주 금요일 했었고요. 그 다음에 남자친구, 여자친구가 어떻게 하면 하나님께 함께 영광 돌릴 수 있을까? 이건 뭐 애인이 있는 사람이 낸 것 같은데, 예, 그냥 영광 돌리면 되지요. 이건 뭐 그냥 영광 돌리면 함께 자녀 예배, 이건 뭐 예. 영적 슬럼프, 이거 토픽 다루겠습니다. 영적 슬럼프를 어떻게 이제 오버컴 할 수 있는지에 대한 질문, 이거 좋은 질문이고요. 그 다음에 좋은 영적 지도자로서 갖추어야 될 자세와 좋은 습관들이 있다면 또 좋은 리더십에 관한, 제가 기독교 우리 지금 피택자들한테도 앞으로 교육할 건데, 이 크리스찬 기독교 리더십과 일반 세상 리더십이 조금 달라요. 공통점도 있고 다른 점도 있어요. 이것도 제가 한 토픽으로 여러분에게 다루도록 하겠습니다. 그 다음에 여러분 뭐 일반 질문 오늘 두 분이 뭐 거의 많이 대답을 해 주셨습니다. 뭐 직업, 전공, 뭐 다른 거, 가치 다른 거, 뭐 자존감, 삶의 고민, 뭐 이런 저런 건 오늘 많이 대답을 해 주셨기 때문에 좋은 시간이 된 줄 압니다. 예, 오늘 이제 마치고 여러분들 내려가셔서 식사하시면 좋은데, 오늘 잠깐 제가 설교를 조금 한 5분 메시지 전하려고 그랬더니 시간이 넘어가서 오늘 안 되겠고, 그 일부는 오늘 저 청년주일이라서 제가 그 청년 설교를 좀 일부에 했습니다. 나중에 여러분 꼭 들어보시면 좋을 것 같아요. 제가 두 사람을 소개했는데 일부에서 마틴 루터킹 목사님하고 1950년대 하버드 대학의 개혁을 선도했던 푸시라는 총장님이 있으신데, 그분 이야기를 조금 언급했는데, 오늘 2부에서는 여러분에게 드리는 마지막 선물 이겁니다. 1부에서는 제가 이야기는 안 했는데, 예, 제가 마틴 루터킹 목사님 되게 좋아하거든요. 그래서 제가 이 말을 제가 이제 좋은 문장은 쉽지 않습니까? 또 어려운 단어도 없고 이런 건 제가 그냥 외워요. 그냥 계속 외우려고. 우리 유진이가 2살, 3살 때, 그때는 제가 영어를 더 잘했습니다. 유진이 영어를 하나도 못할 때 이불에서 땡굴땡굴 구르고 있는 유진이한테 제가 맨날 Hey, look at me 이래가지고 If you can't fly, then run 이러면서 내가 우리 유진이한테 맨날 한 이야기예요. 이게 이불에 땡굴땡굴 눈 뚜루지 이렇게 쳐다봐. 예. 저는 여러분에게 이 이야기를 해주고 싶어요. 예. 이 마틴 루터킹 목사님 연설 중에 하나인데, 이 이야기도 요즘 유튜브에 여러분 마틴 루터킹 목사님이 그대로 한 게 원고가 그대로 나와 있습니다. 예. 여러분의 목표가 있으면 If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then work. If you can't work, then scroll. 여기는 이제 but by all means keep moving 하게 되어 있는데, 어쨌든 여러분 계속해서 계속 전진하다 보면 하나님이 우리를 도우셔서, 오늘 이사야 43장 마지막에 소년도 넘어지고 장정도 넘어지지만 하나님을 앙망하는 자, focus on Jesus, 예수님께 시선을 맞추면 하나님이 결국은 끌고 가서 그 마틴 루터킹 목사님의 I have a dream이라는 그 꿈이 지금 보면은 불과 그게 1963년에 한 이야기인데 지금 한 40년 지났는데 거의 이루어졌거든요. 여러분 청년들이 품는 꿈은 하나님이 기뻐하셔서 반드시 이루어 주십니다. 오늘 여러분에게 주는 메시지는 제가 오늘 칼럼, 그 주보 칼럼에 청년들아 미안하다라는 주제 가지고 제 마음을 거기에 조금 표현했습니다. 여러분의 용기가 되면 좋겠고요. 마지막 찬양 아무것도 두려운 말로 우리 같이 찬양하고 일어서서 찬양을 마치도록 하겠습니다.